everybody, Comic-Con viewers out there. My name is Christian Holub, and I am a writer for Entertainment Weekly. Today I have the additional privilege of being the moderator of this virtual panel for Amazon Prime Video's latest original series, Utopia. We've got a thrilling, never-before-seen trailer that we're going to show you, but first I'm just going to go around and introduce all our panelists and people involved in the show. First up, we've got Utopia's writer and executive producer, Gillian Flynn.
Woo woo! Yeah.
More.
And we've got John Cusack as Dr. Kevin Christie.
Yeah.
Hello.
Rainn Wilson as Michael Stearns.
Woo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sasha Lane as Jessica Hyde.
Yeah, girl.
Yes.
Dan Byrd as Ian.
Woo.
Ashleigh LaThrop as Becky. Desmin Borges as Wilson.
Yeah.
My man.
Javon Walton as Grant.
Wanna.
And Jessica Rothe as Samantha.
Yes, ma'am.
So awesome to have all you guys here. Okay, and now we have a trailer to show for everybody watching, so we'll be back with you in a minute.
What have you done today to earn your place in this crowded world?
Utopia is a story about a rogue scientist who created biological warfare.
You have no idea what the end of the world's going to bring.
French cut string beans aren't gonna save anybody. Everything in Utopia is real.
Basement scientist inserts himself into viral pandemic.
You were told not to raise interest.
Things are getting dangerous.
It shouldn't be long now.
We all have our purpose. This is yours.
Yeah.
All right, well, that trailer throws a lot at us and asks a lot of questions. I'm going to go around this group and ask people about their characters and what role they have to play in the search for Utopia. I'm going to start things off with Gillian, the person with all the answers. We'll start with kind of the most basic question, I think, which is just, Gillian, what is Utopia? What is it all about here?
Well, Utopia is basically, at its core, conspiracy thriller. It's about a group of comic book nerds who think that they've uncovered a possible cult graphic novel that may have the secrets to what is happening to our world right now, the state of the world that we're in. And I certainly think, even though I started this project almost 7 years ago now, trying to get it made, it never feels more resonant right now when we're all sort of seeking answers, doubting answers, asking questions, not sure, up and down, and also with that feeling that we are on the edge of, something very dark and wanting to be saved, wanting people to come in and find the answers and do something. So it was something that appealed to me from the very beginning.
Awesome. Well, as you said, you've been working on it for 7 years. It was around then, 2012 or 2013, when the original version of Utopia aired on the BBC. Some people watching right now may be familiar with it, may not be. I don't think it was super well seen over here, but it does have a lot of fans. And but we're translating it not just 7 years later, but also from British milieu to American cultural milieu. Without spoiling anything, what would you say were kind of important things that you wanted to keep from the original series, and maybe tease also kind of Americanizations that you spun on it?
Yeah, I mean, Dennis Kelly did the original UK version, and he did the exact version he wanted to. I loved it. It's very British. It's very, but very translatable. It's very poppy and, beautiful to look at. Takes its cue very much from the idea of graphic novels, I think, and from that world. And my idea was to not only Americanize it and deal with things that I think are feel specifically kind of resonant to Americans in a lot of ways, but also to make it gritty and dirty and nasty in a, in a very realistic way. That I took my cue more, whereas I think he took his cue from the graphic novels themselves. I took my cue more from the 70s paranoia thrillers that I love, that came out after Watergate, that came out in that era where no one trusted anyone and there was a breakdown in what society, government, the world was feeling like. And I wanted it to feel like that. I wanted that paranoia to feel very real, and to be able to access that through each different character. I would say of all the, each different character has a different attitude toward this conspiracy, whether it is really conspiracy at all, as we can often argue with our own relatives, what's a conspiracy and what's not. And so it was, was the fun of that and the joy of getting to build this world, from scratch again. And, I watched Dennis's wonderful version, and then I thought, I won't, I'll watch anymore. And then took, had the notes and went from there.
Well, before I go around the Zoom and ask everybody about their characters and their connections to Utopia, Gillian, I wanted to ask you, in the 7 years since you first started working on this, you also made Gone Girl movie, Sharp Objects TV show, you wrote the movie Widows. Did any of those projects influence Utopia, or was there anything you kind of learned from doing them that you were able to apply here?
One thing that was really helpful was doing Widows, which I did, was the most recent film I did right before this, and was also based on a great BBC series. And when I was starting to think about doing that with Steve McQueen, we were talking about what to take, what to keep. And, what I did learn was, for me, it's all about kind of making it, respecting what you love about the original, but you really have to make it your own, or why bother doing it? Why bother remaking something if you're doing it, exactly the same? And so, again, I watched the whole series and made notes, and then turned it off and didn't go back to it, because it had to become its own thing. And if anyone who watches both versions of Widows will find that they're very different. And the same thing with this. It was, for instance, like John Cusack's lovely character was not in the BBC version. He was someone I found that felt like I was missing. We all miss John. I need someone that John could come in and play. But I needed that character. I needed a character that I wanted to feel like that American billionaire influencer, that kind of comes in and has his own idea of what the earth should look like. And so he kind of came out of the idea of that. So it was ideas like that worked for me.
Well, let's jump right off that and go to you, John. What was it that drew you to the role of Dr. Kevin Christie?
Well, I was aware of the show in the UK, but not super familiar with it. But then when you get a call from Gillian and she says she's doing a show in Chicago, I was already really interested. And then I was lucky enough to get, I think 6 or 7 of the episodes together, and I started reading them at about 4 PM, and I think I just read them till 3 AM. And then the next day I was like, yeah, I'm in, it's great. So it was just such amazing writing and great characters, and truly a world and sort of a take that I hadn't seen before. Really ambitious, really audacious, sophisticated, crude, shocking, funny as hell. So I was just like all in as soon as I read the scripts.
You definitely make an impression in the trailer. You have the first line and the last line. Could you tell us a little bit more about Dr. Christie's world in this role in this world of the show?
Christie is a character that I think Americans in the world are recognized today. You know, he's one of these people who is at the top of the economic food chain and is trying to make the world a better place through science. He's the CEO of a huge multinational corporation that's working on new food sources and biotech, and is sort of into everything. And he's probably has connections to all the foundations and the think tanks. So he's somebody who's trying to make the world a better place from the 1% down. But he's somebody who's very interested in the future and very kind of awake about the problems that the world faces, whether it's food and water shortages or across the board. So he's somebody who's really working hard every day to try to make his company and the products that he make kind of preserve human life and preserve the future. And so what he says to his family every day is, he says, what have you done to earn your place in this crowded world? So that's kind of a mantra that he repeats, so that every day people who work in his company or people that he comes in contact with feel that they have a need to be of service to the world, not just take. So he's kind of not the normal billionaire you'd see, but somebody who's trying to use science to change the world for the better.
Right on. All right, I want to go to Sasha next. You play a character named Jessica Hyde. A question on the lips of many characters in this show is, where is Jessica Hyde? But I want to do a slightly different version of it, which is just, who is Jessica Hyde? Can you tell us a little bit about her?
Jessica Hyde, I feel, we have always had this kind of thing of, she's this like feral cat who is a bit scraggly and a bit rough, a bit savage, but just like a feral cat, like there's a reason for it. You know, she's spent her entire life just trying to survive. She doesn't really know much about where she comes from, or kind of where, I guess the whole point of everyone is, looking at Utopia to find these answers to save the world. And for her, she's still kind of this little girl inside, despite her appearance and kind of how she runs her life. But she's just looking to find her dad so she can get her own answers about her own self and where she comes from. And so, yeah, she's a big part of this journey to figuring out what's going on. But for her, it's kind of like, I just need to figure out who I am and how I get on. And I think she's someone that you can find yourself kind of hating, but also understanding. And I think that's kind of why I have this big thing of a feral cat in my head, is because they're so intimidating and so rough and scary and just like kind of paranoid. But there's a reason why, like I said, there's something deeper in there. So I feel like, she is a part of the answer, but also she's just as lost as everyone else in her own way, and hoping Utopia will give her answers as well.
I'm curious, John's character, as Gillian said, is not in the British version, but Jessica Hyde is also at the center of the original British show. Did you kind of look to that depiction at all, or did you really just want to make her your own?
I saw, I think I watched a couple of episodes because I kind of wanted to get a feel for the whole world. But when I found myself looking at Jessica Hyde in the British version too much, then I completely cut it off and said, okay, that's that version and it did well for that version. But just how we can see the differences of the UK versus America, there's a difference between our show and their show. So I wanted to kind of have my own take on it, bring my own energy onto it, and kind of follow along the lines of what Gillian was doing with it. So I definitely kind of took my own way, my own past, and kind of how I survived through things and how I, put a mask on to kind of hide something inside, and kind of felt, I Googled a lot of cats. So that's kind of how I took that on. Yeah. Version.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to go to Rainn next. As you play Michael Stearns, who's a downtrodden scientist. He kind of had some early success, but now he's kind of forgotten, working in the basement of a university. What can you tell us about how he's connected to the search for Utopia?
Well, I don't want to give too much away, but I will say that when I read the scripts, I had the same experience as John. I just kind of plowed through them in a matter of hours and was really blown away by how fun and fantastical they were. It's that amazing balance. It's very grounded and it's kind of outrageous at the same time. And it has a nice kind of sense of humor running through it that was great to read. But I was really also drawn in by the character. Michael Stearns is, like you said, he's a basement-dwelling researcher, very minor scientist at a tiny university who's been neglected and passed over for grants. And through his past work, somehow he ends up connected to a much larger global kind of medical conspiracy and gets drawn in, and slowly, episode by episode, becomes kind of more of an unlikely hero. And I was really also drawn by that arc that he takes over the course of the episodes.
Awesome. All right, I wanted to go to Ashleigh next to talk about Becky. What can you tell us about why the graphic novel Utopia is important to Becky?
Becky is a character who is dying of this debilitating disease called Deals. And so she's someone who profoundly believes that Utopia might have the answers in how to cure her, because currently there is no cure. So for her, it's very much life and death. And the larger conspiracy surrounding this graphic novel is something that she kind of gets drawn into. But her initial reasons for wanting it are to save her life, basically.
And Ashleigh is kind of part of this group of people who are interested in the comic Utopia. Another one of them, Dan, is your character, Ian. Can you tell us about what getting his hands on Utopia would mean to Ian?
Ian is basically just a super handsome, super charismatic, pretty buff. I'm kidding, obviously. Ian is definitely an outlier in this group of people that are after the comic book Utopia, in that he is skeptical that Utopia holds real world truths in them. I think he's a fan of the comic book for just being a great comic book, but beyond that, he's skeptical, whereas the rest of them are very much invested in Utopia representing something like much bigger. For Ian, the quest is Becky, and yeah, the one dancing.
Naturally.
By the way, I know what it feels like to be talking head news pundit. Now, this is way harder than it looks. I have a newfound respect for everybody on CNN.
It's true.
But yeah, he is his primary motivation is to get some face-to-face time with Becky, and so he gets sort of roped in to this whole adventure with that in mind. And obviously, I think his position about Utopia evolves as the story unfolds.
Right on. And kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum from Ian is kind of the skeptic of the group. Desmond, we have your character, Wilson, who also has my favorite name in the show. And he, I would describe as
he did get
not
the
so
best
much
name.
a skeptic. Yeah. Wilson seems kind of like a believer, definitely someone who is into the conspiracies. How did you kind of get into his head?
I think believer is an understatement. I would, and I think he would allow me to characterize himself as the foremost leading brilliant conspiracy theorist in the world, and specifically around Dystopia, which is the prequel to Utopia, which is the graphic novel that we are searching for. He's overall, like, the base of Wilson isn't too far from myself. Like, I grew up in a 7-flat gray stone building in Chicago off Fullerton and Sawyer in, I don't know, in the early 80s. And Wilson kind of is living in a Chicago suburb with anywhere between 8 and 10 of his relatives at one time, and may or may not have a bunker in his backyard that he built with his father. I may or may not have built a bunker outside of New York City where I cannot disclose the location because security is paramount. But as far as the world goes, with the nerds, as we call them, this is kind of like the closest group of friends that Wilson's ever have. He's pretty much a loner and a thinker and likes to muse with stickies and conspiracy theories all over his bedroom wall. And I think just being able to give a voice to someone who feels pretty voiceless is kind of cool. And then I get to hang out with a bunch of cool cats, not feral cats like Sasha, regular cats.
Well, I wanted to go to Javon next. Javon, your character, can you tell us a little bit about how your character Grant is connected to the other nerds, as we call them?
Of course. So Grant as a whole is a very street smart boy who grew up in the projects, raised by a single alcoholic mother. And he loves like really cool characters, and he loves Jessica Hyde because she's this badass girl that he really thinks is really cool. Um, uh, but he really just wants to get Utopia because he's really interested in comics, and he's always been interested in comics, but he doesn't know the sacrifices of having Utopia. And he's kind of using the nerds in a way to like manipulate them or to just get Utopia like in general. He just really wants his hands on Utopia, so he'll do whatever it takes. So he acts like he's this cool rich guy who drives a Porsche to be able to get Utopia. So.
Awesome. Well, rounding out the group, Jessica, you play Samantha, who is idealistic and kind of feels like a natural born leader a little bit. What motivates her in her life, and why does she want Utopia?
So you hit the nail on the head. Sam is this incredibly passionate activist, and she really believes in doing things, not just talking about them. And you see that a little bit when they go to Comic-Con to try to retrieve Utopia, is that she's surrounded by all of these people who are obsessed with comics and obsessed with ideas in comics, but she's saying, guys, we can't just talk about ideas. We have to go out and do things. We have to change the world. And so I think that she's kind of selected the people who she brings into the group that we call the nerds, because they each truly believe in dystopia, and they believe in the message of this graphic novel, and that it can change the world, and that there are clues in it that will really make a difference for humanity. And I think that Sam is someone who wants to make a difference more than anything. And so when she hears about Utopia, when she hears that the comic could exist, she'll stop at nothing to find it. And I think she has a really big heart. But I think that she, like everyone in the show, is very complicated. She can be a little bossy at times. But ultimately, she just wants the best for everyone around her.
You bring up a great point, which is that if all the people watching this video chat think that this is a vicarious Comic-Con experience, wait till they see the show, the first 2 episodes of which are set at a Comic-Con. And as we saw in the trailer a little bit, Dystopia, which is the comic that came out before the show began, and Utopia, which is the mysterious new follow-up. They exist as physical comics in the context of the show. And so, Gillian, I wanted to ask you a little bit about working with the artist João Ruas. What kind of made him the perfect choice to illustrate Utopia and give us a sense of what this comic is like?
I had admired his work for a long time. First, I had through graphic novels themselves, and I had always thought, like, who is this guy? And when we started doing it years ago, I mean, from the very beginning, when we were first, before casting, before anything, we had to figure out who was going to do this, because I knew that I wanted the book to be able to be open, to be able to be seen, to really understand why these people were so involved with it, and to be something tangential. So we had to have it completely done and drawn out. And so it was a matter of getting him on board. And then he's based in Brazil, and just sending him what each panel would look like, and getting them back very quickly by the time that we actually started. And slight little notes like that. It was fun, because I was trying to plant different cookies inside the panels, different tricks, like things to think about that were going to come back. Not cookies. I always say that.
Easter
Nerds,
eggs.
help me.
Delicious.
Easter
Could
egg.
definitely have used more cookies.
Easter egg.
Definitely could have
But
used more cookies.
It is, I
She
have to
looks
say,
like
as
a
one of
nerd,
the
but she
nerds,
can't talk like one. Yeah.
I have to say, though, as one of the nerds, it was incredible to have this artwork in front of us, because the clues are so incredibly layered into this beautiful artwork. And I think that people watching the show will have such a fun time going back when you watch it for the second, the third, the fourth time, because you'll pick up on different things. And not only is it stunning, but it's so informative. And as a character who's looking for clues, it was so fun to have the real tactile thing there.
Yeah, totally. The show in general.
You got to play with it the most, probably, with your character being so into it. Like,
it was really interesting as we kept going on. Throughout shooting the series, we would maneuver through different sections. Would kind of take us, would grab us, and would kind of like lead us down another sort of path. And when you really got to like delve into a few of these photos, like just how like beautifully rich and dark they are, just kind of, I don't know, always kind of sent chills down my spine. I don't know if anybody else got that, but when you would kind of like look, because his artwork's so beautiful, like you're looking into the eyes of people who are going through tremendous amounts of pain in an illustrated version. And when you spend enough time with it, it starts to become real.
He also made a real cute baby Sasha.
Oh
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciated that. I really did.
Was it easier to get into your characters' heads of looking for clues and then being kind of just enthralled by this mysterious comic when you had a mysterious comic in front of you to get enthralled by and look for clues in?
Definitely.
Sweet.
And because the clues weren't always easy to find. Like sometimes we actually couldn't find them. And that's so much more realistic and wonderful than it just being kind of glaringly obvious.
We all, I think, perfected our reactions of having just figured out something, but not necessarily figuring out anything in real time. But as an actor, it's your job. You gotta sell it. So.
Sweet. Sasha, I wanted to go back to you to ask about your feral cat of a character. Are there any characters you had played before that you thought kind of compared to Jessica Hyde in an interesting way, or kind of prepared you?
I don't think so. I think it's in an odd way what really kind of made me want to do this, and what I love so much about it. It's reminded me personally of myself growing up. I'm so sweet and lovable now, but I was very much like, I felt I was always in survival mode. I felt I was very cold and I wanted to shut off my emotions, but I think energy is a really big thing. And so what I kind of wanted to do with this, and what I liked about it, is unlike my other characters where it's like, give us all of this and, you know, have all these emotions and just put them all out there. What I got to do was say less and kind of be less, and have an exterior that, you know, performs these actions and kind of carries on the story with everyone. And, you know, you see her there, but also if you're looking at little hints of kind of how her tone shifts or the eyes, and it kind of really brings this a bit of like compassion or empathy for someone who you would just think of like a killer or a savage or someone who is just not to be touched. And so I thought that was really cool to kind of tap into, and I thought it really helped me expand a bit. And it was like a nice change. It was nice to kind of use that form of expression versus being so, I don't know, I like inward more than I like physical. So I thought this was the perfect way to let that out. Unlike my other roles where it's like, like, yeah. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good way to tap into something and make people feel past what they see with my knife, which is also really cool. But there's a heart.
Speaking of drawing on your own experiences and stuff, we were talking about how this show is set in the U.S., obviously, whereas the original one is set in Britain. But it's not just set anywhere in the U.S. It's set in Chicago, which some of you have connections to. Desmin, you were just telling us about growing up in Chicago. John, you as well. Did the Chicago setting kind of help you at all? And Ashleigh too? Right on.
Yeah.
I was
no, that's the wrong way.
And I live
That one.
here.
All right, amazing.
I went to high
yeah.
school north of Chicago.
I also am from Chicago suburbs, so we just got the Chicago gang in this chat today.
Well, I just want to say that I was so excited to shoot in the great city of Chicago, and I will say that the actors from the Chicago acting pool that played like the guest stars and the co-stars and the supporting roles were amazing. Because the acting training in Chicago is crazy good. I mean, it's, you know, it's Second City and Steppenwolf and Goodman and Piven and the actors were terrific. But we didn't actually shoot in Chicago. Okay, we shot in places like Schaumburg and Downers Grove.
And Manuka.
So we all came to Chicago. We were so excited, and we got apartments in downtown Chicago. And then we all took Ubers, you know, an hour and 20 minutes as far out from Chicago as you could possibly get, just on the verge of the cornfields.
Well, thank you for that clarification. Any viewers from Chicago will really appreciate that, because they have a lot of opinions on what is Chicago and what isn't. But yeah, like you know, Desmond and John, did the Chicago setting help you kind of get into your character's mindset a little bit, or imagine their lives at all?
Sure. For me, it was great because, you know, I live here, and to shoot here is just a total treat. And Gillian's from here, and so it just felt natural. And also the city's kind of undershot in a lot of ways. Like there's a lot of beautiful, weird, strange parts of Chicago that really haven't been shown. And you know, even there's I don't know if I'll blow it or give it away, but even the Harold Washington Library, you know. I'm sure it was used somewhere in The Dark Knight or something, but it's used really specifically in kind of a great way in this one. And so, yeah, it was really fun to shoot in Chicago for me. It's like a dream come true. Great project, great actors. You're shooting in Chicago in the spring into the summer. It was kind of like the dream gig.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I mean, ditto to that. It was definitely like a dream gig. It was my first time back being man, since I moved out of Chicago in 2009, 2010. And there's just, I don't know, there's like a visceral feeling that I get when I'm back there, that a level of confidence that I don't really have anywhere else. You know, when John and I were chatting about this before, you know, about the Last Dance. Like I had the luxury of like having someone like, you know, Michael Jordan and then Oprah Winfrey like run the city when I was most impressionable then, and like they are at like such high levels of greatness that it's kind of like those are your icons and those are the people that you see every day, and so you kind of want to, I don't know, follow within those footsteps in whatever way you possibly can. So like getting back and, you know, hitting the streets and seeing places that I haven't seen in a long time. And even though like the outside shell was the same, like everything on the inside was kind of different, and I was rediscovering it again. And it was just super fun, super awesome. I'm looking forward to getting back there sometime. And I got to take my son to see 2 Cubs games. And he sat through 6 innings as a 3-year-old because he was enthralled with the hot dog vendor and the beer vendor, because he thought when he would say goose here, he really thought the guy was like passing out gooses and not Goose Island beer. And so that was just but overall that was an exciting experience for me, because I grew up going to Old Comiskey Park and a Wrigley Field with my pops, and so to finally be able to take my son there was just a really beautiful blessing within the beautiful world that we were creating.
I had an experience of feeling a little bit displaced, actually, because we were filming, when we did actually film in the city, we were filming in locations that I didn't spend a lot of time in growing up. So there was this wonderful feeling of like confidence, because this is my city and I know my city, and also this unsteadiness because there are parts of my city that I don't know, which is really great, I think, because that's kind of Becky. She's this confident person who also is a little unsteady sometimes. So it's cool.
Right, like that's exactly kind of her mindset, right? Like she knows so much about this comic. She spent so many years thinking about it and talking about it, and yet that hasn't quite prepared her for the situation that she finds herself in.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Jessica, despite not being a Chicago native, I did want to go to you and ask a little bit more about Sam, because she's, I would say, kind of one of the, as you were saying, natural leader, kind of one of the brainiest members of the group of nerds. You know, how does she kind of connect with Desmond's character Wilson? Obviously, she doesn't have a bunker. They're pretty different, but they're also pretty smart. How do they kind of work together?
I think there is an insane amount of mutual respect between the two of them. It is really one of my favorite things we got to film was none of these characters have met each other before. They've had these like long, I don't even know if we talked about how long, but probably like years long of online debating and researching and pulling apart this comic and getting really into kind of the mystery that is dystopia. And now they are finally all meeting in the flesh for the very first time. And so there are these weird moments of like, is this person going to be anything like what I have imagined them to be? And I think that with Wilson, the moment Sam lays eyes on him, there is this kind of kindred spiritness between them. Yes, it's true.
It's raw animal passion.
Just true passion and just sexual tension. No, but I really think that Sam, before she even meets Wilson, admires him and knows that he is an ally that she wants in this world, and that even if he wants to use some of his brilliant knowledge a little more towards conspiracy and not as much towards saving the world, she believes truly she can change him, as all great women believe they can change men. But I think that she looks to him as her second in command and kind of the ultimate resource for dystopia and for utopia. And she's really impressed by his bunker.
As a gentleman, and as gentlemanly as Wilson can be, you know, he's definitely not suited for that, but he lets her believe she's the leader so that he can continue doing everything behind the scenes, because you can't like lead the group and And
You can't be a tortured
research for the
genius.
group.
Yeah.
No, not at all times.
He picks a lane. He's very generous in letting Sam kind of call the shots. But I think that's the beauty of the group of the nerds, is that everyone really has their strength and their weakness in a way, but they're such an unlikely group that is going to save the world. But they have all of the resources they need and all of the heart.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's almost a throwback to an earlier version of the internet, the way these characters have met, in a way where they don't know anything about each other. It's kind of this closed loop system that Wilson set up. And I guess that's kind of a fun age difference thing, because I don't know, there may be people watching the show who don't remember that used to be commonplace on the internet. And kind of speaking of age differentials and stuff, Rainn, I wanted to ask you about working with the younger actors on the show, because seriously, they were just hitting you up for office.
Wow.
Like the whole time.
Wow,
Call 'em out like
Christian,
that.
I'm now
I'm in the dinosaur camp with Rainn.
to the
Yeah.
to the. What was it like working with these young whippersnappers? Is that was the question?
Yeah, exactly.
Get off my lawn.
I think I'm the OG nerd, so I had much to teach them about nerddom, because they're all actually pretty darn cool in real life. But I was actually a bassoon player and on the chess team, so F all y'all. Yeah, I mean it's I don't know what I can say, but getting to work with these actors was fantastic. And one of the great things about the project is all of these different worlds. You have a conspiracy world, and you have the nerdy comic book world, and then my kind of academic science world, and then John's billionaire world, and then these worlds start colliding in very unexpected ways. That's kind of what makes one of the reasons that the show's so special.
And speaking of people who in real life are not super nerdy, Javon, I wanted to say that looking up your resume really astonished me. 'Cause you have
Thank you so much.
You are an accomplished gymnast and junior Olympic boxing. Am I missing anything?
Nah, that's it.
Cool. And
Well,
how would you say?
actor.
I'll fight him.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, because Grant is running around a lot, kind of in the show. Did you bring your athleticism into him at all?
Yeah, definitely. You guys will be able to get to see me throw a few punches in some of the scenes, and do some little gymnastic skills, little things like that. So yeah, I'm excited for everybody to be able to see that.
Dan and I definitely received some shadow boxing.
I somehow became the punching bag at a certain point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you set yourself
really.
up for that very early on, Dan.
I mean,
That's true.
yeah.
I guess I deserved it. I don't know.
When you're playing the most handsome guy around, they're going to come for
You got a
Dan.
target on your back.
You're an easy
obviously.
target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It starts young.
I even think Ashleigh targeted him a little bit as well.
Whoa.
So.
Thank you, Javon. Thank you.
I'm just saying, like, I'm not like pointing fingers or anything, but
That's the most
Same.
supportive thing Javon has ever said to me. So not taken for granted.
It's only taken 18 months.
18 months. Yeah, no biggie.
Well, Dan, you mentioned earlier that Ian's kind of main goal in the search for Utopia is getting closer to Becky. So you and Ashleigh share a lot of scenes, especially early on. I wanted to ask you, what were kind of your what was one of your favorite scenes to work on together?
For me, probably all the crying ones. Really allowed me to get some stuff off my chest, and very cathartic experience for both of us, I think. Yeah, I don't know. It would be hard to pinpoint a specific scene without giving stuff away. But Ashleigh is tremendously talented, and I was very lucky to work alongside her in that capacity. I think my favorite scenes were probably the ones where the whole nerd crew was involved. Those were the easiest ones to kind of like slip into this alternate reality and forget, what we were doing in a good way, that we were, forget that we were actors on a set and kind of like really inhabit this world and these people. So those were probably my favorite.
Yeah, and I mean, Christian, I have to say that, one of my key fears, as I was putting together this core group of people who were supposed to be my daughter painted my nails. I just I have to make that clear. That
You did a great job.
She's 5, so was put the idea of like putting together this group who had to come together quickly and be together the whole series and feel viable and feel real, like people who had would click and love each other and get each other's backs. And I felt so lucky with these guys. I had auditions with all of them separately, and so I never got to see them come all together until we were all there on set right before filming. So I just have to say, I so appreciated they're just nice, lovely humans in addition to being nice, brilliant, lovely actors. But I felt so lucky.
Aww.
So do we.
Yeah, we really did.
There's very good team mom energy right there.
Well,
She's the
usually
matriarch.
the secret of it is
Anyone seen Cheer and Monica? Together.
Yeah.
well, the secret is like whoever's running the show, right? If they're super cool, they usually hire people who are super cool, and then the whole thing is super cool. So I think
Totally.
Gillian had that vibe going where it was like a great adventure for everybody. And then as you got into it and the drama kicked in, the sense of adventure had a real sense of kind of danger and the macabre, and it was just such a fully conceived world that everybody got to drop into. But I think I couldn't imagine any actor not having a fun time on that set with that material. I know I did.
As we've seen, there's a lot going on in Utopia, so I'm going to go around and ask everybody to explain in one sentence why people should watch. Starting with you, Gillian.
You should watch because it is dark, chilling, resonant, frightening, charming, and occasionally touches the heart.
I would say you should watch it because I can probably honestly, I don't know if that makes sense, but probably honestly say you've never seen anything like it before. And I think that's a bold statement, but I think it's true.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think you should definitely watch it because there isn't anything like it. And
yeah,
we've got real cool people and we've got a lot of gnarly things with a good laugh in it. So why not?
I think Utopia is great because it's got the conspiracy thriller aspects and the action sequences, and it's got a kind of a wicked sense of humor, but it's also got a lot of heart. And I think that's what Gillian Flynn brought to the equation. Sorry to kiss your butt, Gillian, but it's true.
I'll take it.
I think you should watch Utopia because there are a lot of twists and a lot of fun turns in it. And if you really, really pay attention, there's a lot of hidden Easter eggs that are super, super cool. So that is the reason you will, no, I'm kidding, but the reason you should watch it.
Well, I mean, by the time this comes out, everyone's going to have watched everything that's on TV because quarantine, so you should watch it. But actually, you should watch it because this world is filled with incredibly complicated, rich, beautiful characters. And we have at our head such a strong, badass leading woman in Jessica Hyde, our own Sasha. So check it out.
Yo.
You should watch it because A, If you don't, Juana will find you in the street and take you down.
Exactly.
True.
Don't mean to. Yeah, exactly. B, the world is so vibrantly beautiful, thrilling, and darkly funny that after all this we've been through as a society for these past few months, you owe it to yourself to sit down with a nice cold something, whatever you choose, and just jump right in. And those are the facts.
You should watch Utopia because it's dope, and it will take you on a ride and keep you there for the entirety of the episodes. Yeah, but mainly because it's dope, and you'll love it.
Yeah, I agree with everything everyone else said. It is like a completely unique and distinct experience, and in today's overcrowded television landscape, that is a feat in itself. But on top of that, it's full of rich characters, a great, dark, fun, conspiratorial story, and all these lovely faces on this screen. So,
stop.
All good reasons to watch.
Dan, you sounded so much like John Landgraf at the beginning of that.
Also, if you subscribe to Amazon Prime, not only do you get to watch Utopia, you get dog food and socks like the next day. It's crazy.
Awesome. Well, that feels like a good note to end on to me, unless there was anything any of you guys wanted to add about your characters or anything you want the viewers to know right now.
Yeah, I just want to say that my character is the best character.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this panel. Thanks to everyone out there for joining us and hanging out to learn a little bit more about Utopia. It'll premiere on Amazon Prime Video this fall 2020. So thank you guys all again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace.
Bye.